Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the death toll from flooding in South Africa rises to over 300. President Cyril Ramaphosa visits devastated communities in KwaZulu-Natal as climate scientists predict extreme weather will continue to get worse with global warming. Also, Amnesty International accuses Mali of stalling war crimes and abuse investigations. The rights group says that civilians have borne the brunt of a rise in violence since 2018. And from Bordeaux to Abuja, the international tour of an exhibition highlighting the African experience heads to Ivory Coast. Memoria, Tales of Another History, focuses on the efforts and endeavours of the continent's women. But first, at least 306 people have been killed in flooding around Durban in South Africa. On Wednesday, there were protests by frustrated and frightened residents who've been waiting without water and electricity for days. They say authorities haven't done enough following the heaviest rains the area has seen in 60 years. On a visit to the stricken city, President Cyril Ramaphosa described the devastation as a catastrophe of enormous proportions. Nadine Theron tells us more.
More and more bodies, many of them children, are being uncovered and turning up in mortuaries around Durban. Thousands of people have been left homeless, especially in informal communities where around 6,000 shacks have been swept away. The flooding started on Monday following 4 days of non-stop heavy rainfall. Experts blame this on the La Niña weather phenomenon. The devastation isn't limited to the city of Durban, but affects an area of around 200 kilometers from the north to the south. Some residents are left without access to water, electricity, or mobile reception due to damage to public infrastructure. The poorest of the poor communities have been affected the worst, and the public has been urged to donate water, food, and blankets. Many businesses and banks are closed, and some schools are only resuming classes next week. President Cyril Ramaphosa visited affected communities on Wednesday, amongst them a family who lost 4 children when the wall of a house collapsed. The president has promised that the government will assist with food, blankets, and accommodation.
They told me what happened here in KwaZulu-Natal. I truly see how very, very bad this is. What's happened to you all is very difficult to bear. And it's even worse than we first thought.
The impact of the flooding will be felt countrywide as key routes to Johannesburg are flooded, bridges have collapsed, and shipping containers are seen floating in the floodwaters. This has caused a logistical nightmare, with Southern Africa's most important port, Durban Harbour, suspending shipping operations, and stranded vehicles carrying goods are being looted. The KwaZulu-Natal Department of Cooperative Governance is estimating that billions of rands worth of damage have been caused to infrastructure. This less than a year after civil unrest brought the province to its knees.
Amnesty International said that war crimes and violence against Malian civilians has risen since 2018 and that authorities have done little to investigate or pursue justice for victims. The rights organisations warned that impunity still prevails as citizens regularly face abuses from both extremist groups and allegedly troops. Usman Diallo is from Amnesty's West and Central Africa office and tells us more about what happens to witnesses and victims who risk trying to seek justice.
What happens to witnesses and victims is also very problematic as we discuss the judicial investigations in Mali. Currently, in the Malian Criminal Code, there is no disposition that will protect witnesses and victims in order to allow them to talk with the judges and to be convoyed to Bamako in order to talk with the judiciary. And in a context where you have armed groups that are roaming in central Mali, the risk of reprisals are very real for victims and survivors of incidents in which civilians have been killed, as we have seen since 2018.
So have investigators been able to make a distinction between authorities' response to abuses committed by extremists and those blamed on Malian soldiers themselves, or are the failures you outline across the board?
The failures are across the board. The only silver lining in this is that there have been a lot of judicial investigations that have come to their conclusions on matters related to terrorism, such as belonging to a terrorist group, a group qualified as terrorist, or being part of a jihadist cell. So those people have been prosecuted, and we have seen a lot of that in 2019-2020. But regarding the allegations of violence against civilians, such as the mass attacks such as Ogosagu, Sobanida, Nantaka, that we have seen since 2018, there haven't been any developments in the instructions. They are at a standstill still, actually. And on matters related to abuses committed on civilians by the military, there has been an institutional deadlock with military tribunal having the primacy over the investigations and sometimes being inferior to political powers in Mali.
Now, you've warned that impunity prevails in Mali at the moment, but does the country even have the capacity to tackle the level of lawlessness that it's facing, particularly in light of the scale of the jihadist conflict currently unfolding?
So that's a real concern because as the Malian judges will tell you that they are doing investigations on serious and complex crimes under international law, while at the same time dealing with an jihadist insurgency in the country. So the task is not easy for them, but I think there are elements that should be highlighted, such as the ability to be deployed in the central part of the country in order to audition the victims and the witnesses, which is not always the case in Mali, but also the ability to execute arrest warrants that have been submitted by the judiciary for the military to do, and which hasn't always been done, and which has frustrated the judiciary. So those are actionable points that the Malian authorities could do in order to foster the right to justice and truth in Mali, and that they haven't been doing.
Ousmane Diallo there from Amnesty International. Now, Ivory Coast Prime Minister and his government have resigned. President Alassane Ouattara is planning on slimming down the replacement cabinet, reducing the number of ministers from 41 to 30. Hanan Fejani has more.
President Alassane Ouattara had reportedly been considering this move for a long time. There have been talks of a government reshuffle since the end of last year. Wednesday's announcement of the government's resignation during the weekly cabinet meeting still came as a surprise to many. The country is gearing up for next year's local and regional elections. After accepting Prime Minister Patrick Achi's resignation, President Alassane Ouattara said it was imperative to reduce state expenditure and that he expected to appoint a smaller and more efficient cabinet next week. According to a source at the Prime Minister's office, Patrick Achi may be reappointed as Prime Minister in the new government, but one political analyst, Sylvain Guesson, told us that other names had also been floating around and that the president might decide to appoint Patrick Achi as the next vice president instead. The post has been vacant for nearly 2 years. This resignation comes about a week before President Alassane Ouattara is set to give a highly anticipated State of the Nation address in Yamoussoukro.
Well, 4 Cameroonian prison officials have been killed in an armed ambush. It happened in the country's northwest on a road between Nkambe and Kumbo. The region's at the heart of a long-running and violent struggle between security forces and English-speaking separatists. Claudia Sono tells us more.
The 4 victims were the Northwest Regional Delegates for Penitentiary Administration, 2 prison guards and a driver. The details are still very sketchy, but local media reports say that they were killed after armed men ambushed their vehicle while they were returning to the regional capital, Bamenda, from Kambe, where they had attended an installation ceremony of a local official. Security forces were immediately deployed to the site to try to recover the remains of the victims, which have now been deposited at a morgue in Bamenda. Separatists have claimed Tuesday's attack. It happens in an area which hosts some of the most dreaded militiamen in the region and is very prone to deadly raids. Just last month, the convoy of the regional governor was also attacked in the same area, but thankfully no deaths were recorded. According to a statement issued by Cameroonian authorities, a manhunt has now been launched to try to find the perpetrators of Tuesday's attack. In the meantime, over 5,000 people have been killed and over 700,000 have been displaced since armed militiamen first took up arms against defense forces in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon 5 years ago.
Claudia Sono there for us. Now, South Africa's extended its 600-troop deployment in Mozambique, but shifted focus from military offensives to peacekeeping. The 3,100-soldier-strong regional operation headed into Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province last July to battle jihadist rebels. South Africa's army chief said the extremists' operations have been disrupted, but that a military response isn't enough and stronger governance is also needed. And finally, a touring exhibition focusing on the experiences of African communities and their diasporas has kicked off its tour of the continent in Abidjan. Having left Bordeaux in the south of France, Memoria is now at the Mucat in Ivory Coast, spotlighting the stories and work of African women. Our team went to have a look.
Women have taken center stage at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Abidjan, a space located in the heart of Abobo, one of the most underprivileged neighborhoods in the city. For the children of the community, it's a complete change of scenery.
All right, what do you see here? Wood. The artist created all of this. She adorned them with jewelry. She drew everything herself.
Nadine Patin is one of the two women who initiated and planned this entire exhibition. The curator's main motivation is to open the arts to the general public.
It's very enriching for me because they have a fresh perspective on all of this. We don't have the same frame of references, so we're discovering things all the time. Sharing is the most important thing. It shouldn't matter where one is from or their level of knowledge of the art world.
On display here, sculptures, paintings, textiles, and soon to come, living art. Since April 7th, the Memoria exhibit has offered a wide range of art pieces exclusively created by African women. A selection that sheds light on the continent's female talent that remains widely unrecognized.
I had no idea that women were producing this kind of art. I was familiar with La Falaise Dion's work because she created an outfit for our Miss Côte d'Ivoire, but not the others. I didn't know there were so many of them.
Abidjan is the first African city where this mobile exhibit is happening. With each stopover, it's the host country's talent that gets the spotlight. Karine Manson is among the 6 Ivorian artists whose works were selected. The sculptor hopes to send a message of resilience to young women.
As a woman and as an artist, I feel it's my duty as a citizen to convey this state of mind to the youth and young women in particular. The mindset that even as women, you can accomplish things, build a career and dream.
There is still time to inspire Ivorians to dream. The Memoria exhibit will remain in Abobo until August 21st. Its next destination is yet to be defined.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.